The dismissal Omar Malik straightened his tie and smoothed down the front of his worn but clean shirt. At 29, he carried himself with quiet dignity despite the challenges life had thrown his way. After losing his engineering job due to company downsizing, the last 6 months had been difficult, but today could change everything. Sapphire Palace stood before him, its elegant facade gleaming in the afternoon sun. Inside, Omar knew, was Karim Zaidan, a potential investor who had expressed interest in his water filtration system designed for rural communities. This meeting represented his last hope of bringing his invention to those who needed it most. Taking a deep breath, Omar pushed open the heavy glass doors and stepped into the restaurant's opulent interior. Crystal chandeliers hung from high ceilings, casting prismatic light over marble floors and tables adorned with fine linens and fresh flowers. The soft notes of classical music mingled with the gentle murmur of conversation from well-dressed patrons. At the reception desk, a young woman looked up, her welcoming smile faltering slightly as she assessed Omar's appearance. His suit, though once of good quality, showed signs of wear at the cuffs and collar. "Good afternoon," Omar said with polite confidence. "I have a meeting with Mr. Karim Zaidan at 3 o'clock. The receptionist checked her reservation book. Mr. Zaidan has asked to push the meeting back by 1 hour. He's caught in traffic but has reserved the table. Would you like to wait?" Omar glanced at his watch. Waiting meant ordering something, spending money he could ill afford, but rescheduling might mean losing this opportunity entirely. "I'll wait, thank you," he decided. She nodded and signaled to a waiter. "Faisal will show you to the table." Faisal, the head waiter, approached with measured steps. Tall and impeccably dressed in his formal uniform, he carried himself with the air of someone who considered the restaurant his personal domain. His eyes, dark and assessing, swept over Omar in a swift, dismissive glance. "This way, sir," he said, the honorific somehow sounding less than respectful. Omar followed him through the dining room, aware of the curious glances from other patrons. The table was positioned near the kitchen, not one of the better locations. "Would you like to order while waiting?" Faisal asked, handing Omar a menu with barely concealed reluctance. Omar glanced at the prices and felt his stomach tighten. A single appetizer cost nearly a day's budget. "Just tea, please. I'll order properly when my associate arrives." Faisal's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. "As you wish." As the waiter walked away, Omar noticed him stop to speak with 2 other servers, their glances in his direction making the subject of their conversation clear. Pushing aside his discomfort, Omar focused on preparing for his meeting, reviewing key points of his presentation in his mind. The tea arrived, placed rather than served on the table, and Faisal disappeared without a word to attend to other customers. Omar sipped slowly, making the drink last while watching the minutes tick by on his watch. After 30 minutes, other diners began to take notice of the young man occupying a table while ordering nothing but tea. Faisal passed by several times, each glance more pointed than the last. Omar's discomfort grew, but he remained composed, sending a polite text message to Karim inquiring about his arrival time. The response came quickly. "Terrible accident on highway, traffic at standstill. Can we move to Café Al Manar in 45 minutes? Deeply sorry for inconvenience." Omar's heart sank. He typed back his agreement, then signaled to Faisal for the bill. "Leaving already?" the waiter asked, approaching with poorly concealed satisfaction. "Yes, my meeting has been moved to another location," Omar explained. "Could I have the bill for the tea, please?" Faisal's lips curled slightly. "Of course. Though I must say we don't normally accommodate guests who occupy tables without proper dining." Omar kept his voice level despite the humiliation burning in his chest. "I understand. I apologize for the inconvenience." Several nearby diners had turned to watch the exchange, some with curiosity, others with embarrassment on Omar's behalf. Across the restaurant, seated in a private corner booth, Layla Noor looked up from her business lunch. At 27, with intelligent brown eyes and an elegant bearing that came from both nature and upbringing, she was the kind of woman who noticed details others missed. The tension in the waiters, posture, and the quiet dignity in the customers' response caught her attention immediately. Faisal returned with Omar's bill and amount 3 times the listed price for tea. "There is a minimum charge for table service during peak hours," he explained with false politeness, loud enough for others to hear. Omar examined the bill, recognizing the lie but unwilling to create a scene. With steady hands, he counted out the money, including a tip despite the treatment he'd received. Perhaps next time you should consider establishments more suitable to your circumstances, Faisal added, the insult thinly veiled. At this, Layla straightened in her seat, her conversation forgotten as she watched the cruel interaction unfold. Omar stood, his back straight and his eyes level. Thank you for the recommendation, he said quietly, though I wonder if any establishment would benefit from treating customers with such disrespect. Faisal's face hardened. I'm merely suggesting that Sapphire Palace caters to a certain clientele, those who can afford more than just tea, and those who can afford common decency, Omar asked, his voice still calm but carrying enough to be heard by those nearby. A hush fell over the surrounding tables. Faisal's cheeks darkened with anger. I think it's time for you to leave, he said sharply, before I call security. Omar nodded once, dignity intact despite the public humiliation. I was just going. As he walked toward the exit, eyes followed him, some sympathetic, others averted in discomfort. Layla Noor watched him go, noting how he maintained his composure even in the face of such undeserved treatment. Outside, the bright sunshine felt harsh after the restaurant's dim lighting. Omar loosened his tie slightly, taking a deep breath to steady himself. The meeting with Karim Zaidan now felt even more crucial, not just for his invention, but for his sense of self-worth that had been needlessly damaged by Faisal's cruelty. What Omar couldn't know as he walked away from Sapphire Palace was that within hours, he would return under very different circumstances. Nor could he have guessed that Layla Noor, who had witnessed his humiliation, was already speaking to the restaurant manager about the incident, or that her father's investment firm was exactly what his struggling project needed. Fate, it seemed, had more in store for Omar Malik than a simple meeting with an investor. Sometimes the universe has its own way of balancing the scales. The opportunity, Omar hurried to Café Al-Manar, his mind still stinging from the humiliation at Sapphire Palace. The modest café provided welcome relief with its unpretentious atmosphere and friendly service. Karim Zaidan arrived 15 minutes later, apologizing profusely. Traffic was impossible. Let me make it up to you by ordering lunch. As they shared a simple meal, Omar presented his water filtration system designed for rural communities. Karim examined the prototype designs with increasing interest. This could transform villages struggling with water access, Karim said. The cost efficiency is remarkable. Meanwhile, at Sapphire Palace, Layla Noor approached the restaurant manager. The way your head waiter treated that customer was unacceptable, she said firmly. I apologize, Miss Noor. We'll address it immediately. Layla took out her business card. Please have that gentleman contact me if he returns. My father's company is looking for exactly the kind of dignified innovation he seems to represent. Back at Café Al-Manar, Karim was making a phone call. My partner needs to see this today. Can you meet him at 4? He's quite influential, Omar agreed, unaware that his life was about to change dramatically. Part 3. The transformation. 1 hour after being humiliated at Sapphire Palace, Omar sat across from Samir Noor, one of the country's wealthiest investors. Karim had brought him directly to Noor's office after their cafe meeting. Your filtration system could help thousands, Samir said, examining the designs. We want to back this immediately. Within minutes, preliminary contracts were signed. Samir's assistant handed Omar a company card with a substantial advance deposit. You'll need to meet potential manufacturing partners this afternoon, Samir explained. My daughter Layla handles these arrangements. Take our company car. Dazed, Omar found himself escorted to a gleaming luxury sedan with a driver. We'll stop at Marzouk's for appropriate attire, the driver explained. Mr. Noor's instructions. An hour later, Omar emerged from the exclusive men's store in a perfectly tailored suit. The transformation was remarkable. The clothing not only fit his body but somehow completed the confidence that had always been within him. As the driver opened the car door, a text arrived from an unknown number. Mr. Malik, this is Layla Noor. I'll meet you at Sapphire Palace at 6 p.m. to discuss manufacturing partners. I've made reservations. Omar stared at the message, fate's irony not lost on him. He was returning to the very restaurant that had rejected him, now as someone they would rush to accommodate. At precisely 6 o'clock, the luxury sedan pulled up to Sapphire Palace. This time, doorman rushed forward, opening the car door with deferent smiles. Omar stepped out, now the very picture of success in his tailored suit and polished shoes. The receptionist greeted him with a bright smile, completely failing to recognize him from earlier. "Welcome to Sapphire Palace, sir. Do you have a reservation?" "Yes, with Miss Noor." Her eyes widened. "Of course, sir. Please follow me to our best table." As Omar was led through the restaurant, he noticed Faisal attending to nearby diners. The waiter glanced up, his eyes registering the expensive suit and confident, bearing without connecting him to the man he'd humiliated hours before, seated at the restaurant's finest table. With a view of the garden, Omar calmly ordered an expensive mineral water while waiting for Layla. When Faisal approached to serve him, his manner was obsequious. "Our specials today are particularly excellent, sir. May I recommend the lobster bisque to start?" Omar nodded politely, suppressing a smile at the irony. Minutes later, a striking woman entered the restaurant. Heads turned as Layla Noor made her way toward Omar's table. Faisal rushed forward to escort her, practically bowing with each step. "Miss Noor, always an honor." Layla nodded coolly. "Thank you, Faisal." Only when she reached the table did Omar realize this was the woman who had been seated in the corner during his earlier visit. Her eyes held a spark of recognition, and something more. Faisal's expression when he realized they were dining together was a study in confusion. When Layla greeted Omar warmly, mentioning their new business partnership, the waiter's face drained of color as realization slowly dawned. Throughout dinner, Faisal hovered nervously, now offering impeccable service while struggling to reconcile the shabby tea drinker with this confident businessman, dining with the daughter of Samir Noor. As the meal concluded, Layla excused herself briefly. Omar used the moment to speak directly to Faisal. "Do you remember me from this afternoon?" he asked quietly. Faisal's hands trembled slightly as he poured water. "Sir, It's all right," Omar interrupted. "I'm not here for revenge. I didn't recognize, I never thought." "That's precisely the problem," Omar said. "You didn't see a person. You saw a worn suit and empty wallet." The restaurant owner approached, having been informed of the situation by Layla. "Mr. Malik, please accept my deepest apologies for how you were treated. Faisal's employment will be terminated immediately." Omar shook his head. "That's unnecessary. We all deserve second chances, don't we, Faisal?" The waiter nodded, genuine remorse in his eyes. "Perhaps instead, your staff could receive training on treating all guests with dignity, regardless of appearance." 6 months later, Omar and Layla returned to Sapphire Palace to celebrate the successful launch of their water filtration systems in 3 countries. The restaurant had transformed, not just in decor but in atmosphere. Faisal greeted them warmly, now the restaurant's hospitality trainer. "Your usual table is ready," he said with genuine respect, leading them through the restaurant where guests from all walks of life were being treated with equal dignity. As they took their seats, Layla reached for Omar's hand across the table. "You changed more than one life that day," she said softly. Omar smiled, squeezing her fingers gently. "Sometimes the greatest transformation isn't in circumstance but in perspective. From humiliation to success, from strangers to partners in both business and life, their journey had come full circle, proving that true worth lies far deeper than appearance, and that kindness can be the most powerful response to cruelty."